Hello to everybody on the call. I'm delighted to see some very familiar names. So, how can we use the model that Stephen has developed for advocacy and possibly even policy making? And if we think this is just the S-shaped curve that we've mentioned, ideally we'd want everyone living in a country where there was 100% coverage of all of the SDGs. And of course, we know the SDGs are based on economic and social human rights. So we would love everyone to be living in those countries that have that. And how can we get there? And we need more government revenue in each country per person. And lots of people in this call have done amazing work to try and make sure countries have more government revenue, either by encouraging collaboration at the international level or at the national level, looking for where governments could increase their revenue. And this is where we think, and this is what we're proposing, is that the grade tool might help your advocacy work to bring the big numbers, but also the numbers of people who are actually impacted to the decision makers and say, this is what this extra money could buy. Even one extra child going to school is very important. So I'll just briefly show you the tool, and this is our website, and the model is on this tab. And if you click on this icon, you'll come to the model. This is what the model looks like, and on the left-hand side, there are 4 panels. The first one allows us to input the country that we're interested in. The next panel allows us to input the revenue, and I use secondary sources, of course, and it comes in many forms. It could be in terms of absolute additional revenue, $100 million. It could be additional revenue per capita, or as a percentage of government revenue. Or indeed, if we have a large data set, we can upload it as a CSV file. But for today, I'll just talk about single country estimates. Once we've decided, say we've decided on our revenue, we decide whether it's in dollars, millions, or billions of dollars, and this is in 2015 constant US dollars. We then select our projection period, and of course we're all now focused on the end of the SDGs, so I'll pick the 10 years before them, 2021 to 2030, and this is our outcome. We select the outcome of interest. So if we choose, for example, a low-income country, and the greyed out countries are not low income, those with colour on them are low income, and I'm going to pick Mali. So imagine if Mali, for whatever reason, from whatever source, had additional revenue, and we'll put it in as an increase in percentage of government revenue per capita. Just imagine if they had an increase of 20% of government revenue per capita, and we're still on basic sanitation. Almost 1 million people would have access to basic sanitation in the country. Almost 250,000 women would have access. Additional people would have access by 2030, and 160 children under 60,000 children under 5. So we see that the numbers are very impressive and just might influence someone who's making a decision. What about basic water? Equally very large numbers and impressive. We can also select to present multiple indicators, and these are the numbers by 2030. This is the numbers of people who would have access to those SDGs. We can download the image as a PNG, or we can download the plot data and present it as works for your presentation. What if we pick a lower middle income country, and I'm going to choose Pakistan. And again, we see the numbers are huge. Multiple indicators, clean fuels, 20 million. Let's look at one of them individually, and we look at under 5 mortality. And over 10 years, the cumulative effect would be 120,000 children's lives saved. In 1 year, in the 2030, it would be just over 14,000 lives. So these are massive impacts that we can show decision makers to try and make our case for whatever policy change that we're hoping we're advocating for. So I'm going to just tell you a story and to show you how we, with colleagues, have used the model. And it's about Ireland. And in 2011, 2012, Ireland decided that they would like to sign tax treaties with a number of African countries to increase trade with African countries. And one of those countries that was selected was Ghana. And in 2018, Ireland approached Ghana, and the countries signed a tax treaty. And later in the same year, Ireland ratified it. As far as I know, it hasn't been ratified in Ghana yet. But in 2020, a group of NGOs, including NGOs from Ireland and from Ghana, were concerned about this, and this catalysed a submission to the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child. And they wrote in that submission, Ireland is failing to meet its obligations under the Convention on the Rights of the Child due to its facilitation of cross-border tax abuse. And they used the GRADE tool in this case to look at the impact of the estimates on tax abuse in Ghana at that stage. And the story, of course, doesn't stop there. The committee then, in their list of issues prior to reporting, asked Ireland to describe the measures taken to ensure that the tax policies don't contribute to tax abuse by companies operating in other countries, which might lead to a negative impact on the realisation of children's rights. And Ireland responded in their response. They said, we've done a spillover analysis. We don't believe there's any problem with our tax policies with regards to human rights in other countries. And the same NGOs resubmitted again, and they provided a critique of the spillover analysis, saying that it was narrow in focus in terms of the number of the countries, in terms of the number of years. And again used our tool to provide estimates of Ireland's contribution to tax abuse, the impact of tax abuse globally, using the Tax Justice Network estimates. And it was found that there'd be a vast number of children's lives impacted by their tax policies. And as a result, the convention then, in their concluding observations in 2023, asked Ireland to ensure that its tax policies don't contribute to tax abuse by companies registered in Ireland but operating in other countries, which might lead to a negative impact on the availability of resources for the realisation of children's rights. And this is not the end of the story. And just some of the committee members who made the submission said that the committee members were very interested in the numbers. The actual evidence helped sway them to come to this conclusion. So this research was critical for that. So it might just persuade some decision makers in some places to make different decisions. And this isn't the end of the story. In 2024, the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission took a very unusual step of also raising the issue of Irish tax policies with respect to their extraterritorial obligations and their impact on human rights in other countries, and again asked for an ongoing and independent analysis. And ourselves in the Tax Justice Network also admitted to the Committee on Economic and Social Rights, and the committee also asked Ireland to strengthen measures to combat cross-border tax evasion, to contribute to the international efforts to ensure everyone has 100% access to the SDGs, or economic and social cultural rights. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll hand back to you, Nigel. Thank you.